Hey guys, it's Kusi. After getting carried the first week of the season on a DPS, I tried to prove my worth as a healer in a season in which apparently everything is a healer duty, according to this dude at least. And after 7 episodes of flaming tanks for their occasionally questionable decision making and their overconfidence in some dungeons, it's only natural that I make the move to the front line, Andy, and play tank myself. So because I'm a community kind of girl, I made a poll. And you decided a close call between the edgelord specs. And you guys just really hate me, huh?
Yes.
The Knight of Dirtnap won barely. And so we have the return of
Darwin Nunes.
dusted this dude off fresh from season 4 of Dragonflight, and after reaching level 90, there was only one thing standing between me and glory. This dog shit gear. Now that's what I'm talking about. How many delves did I do? Yes. Did I do every prey that gives gear? Yes. All the weeklies for world events? Yes. Even ritual sites?
No.
Ain't no way I'm doing that crap. Nice try, Diddy. So before I show you exactly why I think tank is the role with easily the most control on how a run can go, and how you can be the guide that your random party of absolute knobheads so desperately need, let's talk about the rules of the Zero to Hero. As the name suggests, we go solo. No friend lists, no guilds, no prior gear, no prior score. Even though I'm on Silver Moon, so maybe I do get invited into a guild with a funny name, and I kinda have to take that just because of that, but everything connected to the grind will happen solo. There's also no raid.io connection, as I mentioned, so no one will ever figure out that I'm a mid-ass DPS and a prodigy holy paladin. Be that as it may, all sorts of gearing methods are allowed, though I will not ask for any item drops. If the receiving player asks me if I want it, I might take it, but I won't initiate the conversation. But most importantly, again, it's a solo experience, which also means due to the never-ending less tanks than keys situation, I will also apply to other people's keys instead of playing on my own. This was very rough to do on the healer, because boy howdy did that go wrong often. But I proved to you that on the tank it's about 90% of the time your control if the key will be successful or not. Obviously talking about the more common key levels of maybe 10s, maybe 12s, 13s. Which brings me to the goal. 3k, no less, no more. I refuse to give into this horrible 3.4k achievement idea of Blizzard until the very end. Until they make it worthwhile at least. Now then, in order to get this party started, let me quickly give you a nooblet introductions on how Blood DK works. Why I think you, the voters, have a weird fetish of seeing me suffer, and why especially healers don't like it when there's a Blood DK leading the charge. Or at least most healers. Compared to a proper tank, the one who sponges all the incoming damage so the rest of the party can have a good time, Blood DK is technically very squishy. The only passive mechanic they have to deal with incoming hits is parry, and that heavily scales off of your critical strike, which, in my case, I don't have much. To balance that out, however, Blood DK has a pretty high HP pool, or it was supposed to have, and they have one spell that refunds part of the lost HP during the last few seconds of combat, Death Strike. And while in earlier expansions DK were a lot more of a yo-yo when it came to the HP bouncing up and down non-stop, Blizzard wanted to change that a little bit with the spec pruning for Midnight. They wanted to lower the self-sustain of high self-healing tanks and make them a little bit more reliable on healers when shit hits the fan, while also buffing the basic incoming damage by adjusting armor, for example. And the truth is, they did that.
Oh, really?
Not good.
That sucks.
You still get your nuts kicked in like before, but with less self-heal, so job halfway done? However, the good part about this combat system is that healers should expect it, and in a certain key range pretty much ignore DKs entirely after the gathering of the pull. On lower keys, healers tend to be a lot more shocked when your HP drops in one frame. Just so you know, it's almost natural, don't worry about it. When you're healing a Blood DK, pay attention to when the pull is happening and maybe put an external on them if you want. But once they death strike, you can relax and focus on the party. Similar to a tank paying attention to the resource bar of the healer, as a healer you just pay attention to the resource bar of the DK. If he has no runic power, he needs help. Evoker is pretty good with this type of tank due to the 1 minute external of time dilation. However, Death Knights and Blood Death Knights specifically have a bunch of tools to not only ignore a lot of incoming damage, but to also make some pulls the smoothest they could ever happen to be. When talking about defensive utility with a short cooldown, we have to talk about Vampiric Blood, which increases your HP drastically and also all healing received. Extra huge if we think about the selfie we do. The cooldown might look normal to you, but you get it lowered every time you death strike. AMS or Anti-Magic Shell allows us to ignore so many nasty mechanics, especially magical dots like the ones in Windrunner Spire, on the Bird Boss or in Skyreach that a lot of tanks struggle with. Death Advance, even though not being a defensive, also allows us to cheese a lot due to its extra effect of being immune to knockback mechanics, letting you keep the pull in place without having to deal with any repositioning. For bigger cooldowns, we got Icebound Fortitude, a basic ass 30% damage reduction that also grants an immunity to stuns, usable while being stunned. That is very niche, but there are some moments in which this is a pull saver, and arguably one of the most unique cooldowns in the entire game, Dancing Rune Weapon. A spell that summons 2 copies of your weapons that also copy all the damage abilities you do, including spreading your diseases, and granting parry. Our Apex talents pretty much just spawn Dancing Rune Weapons by random after using runes. Every rune you spend has a, I think, 12.5% chance to proc a Dancing Rune Weapon. Honorable mentions: Anti-Magic Zone, which does have its uses, but it's often hard to pull off in dungeons because people are usually very spread or they don't know what it does and ignore it. However, what makes Blood Decay super unique to have in a dungeon run is the Death Grip mechanic. They are the only class that has this sort of spell, and it allows you to grip a nasty archer mob or maybe a caster that get completely ignored by your ranged players because their goal often is just to blow their load before any load gets blown onto them.
What do you mean by that?
It just helps, keep that in mind. Gorfine's grip is my choice note over what was called Slappy Hands because it also adds a 3-second silence. Alright, so now that we all have some sort of an idea on what's going on and what to expect, let's talk about why I think Tank has the most control about an either successful or unsuccessful run of a keystone. It's because you make the decision. Simple as that. You can play for your DPS for the most part. And it's that effective too, because not only do non-experienced players appreciate if someone else does the decision making, it also applies for simply worse players that won't pay attention. Decisions in Mythic Plus not only mean a route, it also means which packs you play together and how you approach it. Maybe which packs you can play onto a boss to help with funnel damage. And a very simple rule for that is, don't expect anything from anyone. Only play the pulls you can gather up yourself, without any help of others. If you are playing with random players, always expect to hold hands. Also gives you a pleasant surprise and a tingly feeling in your tummy when you find a DPS that once in a while kicks a mob while gathering. It feels good. Now, as you probably could tell from the footage so far, I started out doing 6s right away due to the rather simple scaling of keys this season. I was curious to see what happens in lower keys, but I feel like as a tank, you can't really mess things up when you did the dungeons before and know what to expect. And I'm not a complete stranger to tanking in general, so I wanted to at least have a little bit of a challenge that also grants pretty decent gear upgrades in form of hero track items. And also, because there is a tank shortage, they will just invite you. For me, this was mostly a figuring out how to pull packs together, get a feeling for the range of my abilities and when I feel comfortable during a pull. My biggest issue is the shitty threat you do on range. Only having one ability with a cooldown to do some kind of aggro is kinda mid, because for the most part I rely on Blood Boil for threat purposes and occasionally mobs just don't come close enough quick enough. Or someone just nukes the shit out of the first moving target whenever they see one. When it comes to Nexus Point specifically, even though it doesn't matter too much on the 6, I'd like to play a route eventually in which I can skip mostly everything on the final part of the dungeon, as those mobs are disgusting. And I hated them as a healer, while also playing the least amount of trash possible on the left side, for the very same reason. Meaning I want to play everything on the right side to compensate. In a perfect world, it would kinda look like this. First pull room with Bloodlust, just to get it going and to not have any expectations for the left side, because then you can just make your way slowly towards the left without any unnecessary big pulls, because the left side has so much more stuff happening. Don't get me wrong, there are so many abilities that are negatable by people using certain buttons, they just don't. So the healer has to punish himself to muscle through that. and I don't want to do that to my healers. I only packed these into one pool in this visual so you can see the percentage of which I want to leave on. As you can see, you can't skip too much on the left side, but not playing the two big dudes is kinda important to me. However, I think that never happened so far. If one of the big guys does get body pulled, feel free to just skip the two guys to the left of the bridge before boss number 1. Generally speaking, unless you pull absolutely everything, you can't go too wrong. The worst outcome would be that if you have to play the entire final platform and still lack percentage. That final part hurts like crazy, especially in puck runs in which the common rule whoever kicks first is gay applies. Those casters are mind-blowing when you have to stare at the HP bars of your party. Luckily, most dungeons are super straightforward when it comes to percentage, and don't forget that you got the new affix in which Chromie guides your way. However, also remind yourself that this Chromie affix got coded by Blizzard, so evidently the person who did mark the mobs probably doesn't even play the game, never did Mythic Plus, and just theory crafted a 100% route. One important rule to all my tank enjoyers who just start out playing: don't let anyone stress you. If you got a DPS begging for bigger pulls, put them on ignore. If they keep pulling for you just so they don't lose a stack, let them keep aggro for a while, you know, keep them on their toes. Might make them reconsider. You can make, will make, and have to make decisions about pull sizes depending on what team you got, how much damage they do, and how capable you are in surviving it. If some flavor of the month DPS moron tries to peer pressure you into making mistakes, don't follow into that trap. With that being said, if you can easily live a pull size without using a defensive, feel free to push yourself a little more. Generally speaking, there are only a few packs of maybe 3 mobs that you want to play solo. Most of the time, make sure you have at least 2 packs together. With more experience, you will be able to manage the fine line between pulling small enough packs to time the key and not be a threat towards a full wipe, and big pulls that only you as a tank might survive while the rest has to spam the release button. Balance in everything. It's all about understanding your party. If you just did a massive pull and it died pretty quickly, it's safe to assume that your party doesn't have cooldowns back up yet. So might as well make a smaller pull afterwards to chill. I know this gets tedious for all of you that know how to tank and have experience in it. But for beginners, it's really important to know that as a tank, you can manipulate your party into performing a lot better simply by just not playing unpredictable. There's nothing worse than pulling slow half the dungeon and then all of a sudden you just board and go apeshit into 5 packs. You can try to make thrash pulls as chill and puck friendly as possible, while most bosses require everyone else to do their part. Alright. Sorry for the Omega yap, but I felt like we needed to put out some basics for this series, because I will start explaining what I will do in plus 10 keys and above, due to most of my runs recorded until 10 only being with Tyrannical, meaning you can just YOLO trash pulls and nothing ever happens to you. In 10s or above, that's where you have to be a little bit more strategic with it. I also kinda had to hurry up with the editing because of my working schedule, man, it was so painful. So I didn't have too much time, I hope you won't be too mad. With that being said, thanks for watching and I will catch you in the next one, guaranteed on Friday in our normal 2 videos a week schedule. Peace.